Good morning, kids. Mr. Wyatt here for another episode of Socially Distant Sunday School. And today, our friend Lily from Sunday School is going to be reading the Bible lesson for us. And the Bible lesson that she's reading for us has two parables in it. If you remember from a couple weeks ago, I taught you that a parable is a type of story that Jesus told that is supposed to tell us a bigger point about what it means to be a follower of Jesus. The two parables that Lily is going to read for us today come from the book of Matthew, chapter 13, verses 31 through 33. And the first parable is called the parable of the mustard seed. Pastor Marcus is going to talk about that parable in his sermon today. But the second parable, and the one that I want to talk about this morning, is called the parable of the yeast. And it says that a person who is baking, they add just a little bit of yeast to their flour, and it makes the entire loaf of bread grow. Now, I don't know if any of you have baked before, maybe with your family, but I love to bake. And I realize that if you have never baked anything before, like bread, then you might not understand what that means whenever it says a little bit of yeast in a big bunch of flour makes the whole loaf of bread grow. See, if I wanted to make my own loaf of bread, I've got this bread here from my cabinet, but if I wanted to make my own loaf of bread, I would have to use probably about this much flour. It fills about half the bowl. And then I'd have to use an ingredient called yeast. I've got yeast right here. And if I didn't use this yeast, whenever I decided to bake this bread, I could add all of the other ingredients that I need into this flour. But the loaf of bread wouldn't rise. It wouldn't look big and fluffy like this bread does. It would probably come out looking something more like this, like a tortilla. Yeast, although it is just one ingredient in the entire recipe for bread, when you add just a little pinch of yeast, it makes the loaf of bread grow. And once you add all the other ingredients and let them sit together, you'll see after a while that the entire thing looks like it's about to flow out of this bowl. And without just a little bit of yeast, then it wouldn't look like a loaf of bread at all. There's this saying in baking and cooking with a lot of ingredients like yeast. And the saying is, a little bit goes a long way. That means you just have to add a little bit of yeast to this bread, about this much in the packet, and it makes the whole loaf of bread grow twice its size. Jesus teaches us about how yeast, a little bit of yeast and a whole lot of flour, makes the whole loaf of bread grow. Because just like with a loaf of bread, in our lives, a little bit of faith in God goes a long way. In fact, a little bit of all the things that we want to do as Christians goes a long way. Sometimes we think whenever we're followers of Jesus, we have to always be perfect. We have to do as much of the things that make us Christians as we possibly can. And that is true. We want to show as much love and grace and forgiveness to people as we possibly can. But what Jesus is teaching us here, whenever he says that the kingdom of God is like a little bit of yeast, Jesus is saying the same thing. Whenever you show just a little bit of love to somebody, it goes a long way to make a difference in their life. Whenever you give just a little bit of your time to tell people how much they mean to you, it goes a long way for those people. Whenever you show just a little bit of forgiveness whenever you're angry or sad, it goes a long way to help your relationship with those people better and with just a little bit of faith in God, that God can help us through everything in our lives, then we will begin to see the love of God grow in our lives into a big, beautiful loaf of bread just like this one. Because it just takes a little bit of faith to make a big difference in our lives. So I hope this week you all will remember to show just a little bit more love, a little bit more kindness, and have a little bit more faith in God this week, so that you can see how much the love and grace of God grows in your life. Because a little bit goes a long way. I hope you all have a great week, and I can't wait to see you at Socially Distanced Sunday School again next week. Bye!